Welcome to our Sound for Video session. It's the 31st of January, 2016. Q&A session this time, so we're going to do questions and answers, and here are the questions you guys submitted, so let's get right into them. First of all, from Jen, or Gen, I apologize, I don't know how to pronounce your name exactly. Hi Curtis, I picked up the Aperture A-Lav on your recommendation, and it works well with my iPhone. However, I wanted to try it with my Tascam DR100 Mark II, and tried it with the TRS jack into the Line 2 input on the side of the unit. No signal. Do I have to go in via the XLRs, and if so, why? And do you have a TRS to XLR adapter you like? Thanks. Yes. So here's the thing. If with a microphone, you always have to go into a microphone input. Plain and simple. A line level input's a very different thing. In our production audio course, we actually talk about the difference between mic level and line level. They are very different things, so you do need a microphone input. I used to own the DR100 Mark II, but I don't remember if there's a 3.5 millimeter mic input. I don't think there is, from my recollection. So yes, you would need to adapt. I'm not sure on the Aperture A-Lav if it needs plug-in power or not. It does have its own battery, so I don't think it does. So I would use a Rode VXLR adapter, and I can put a link for that down below. It's just a $10 US 3.5 millimeter TRS to XLR adapter, and that works pretty decently. So hopefully that helps. All right, next question is from Kevin Edwards. I know this may be a little short notice, but I wonder if you have or could arrange a review of a particular Sennheiser EW100 compatible lavalier microphone. Mike, I had tried to research this on YouTube with little success. I've heard about the Oscar Sound Tech range, which I understand are made in the USA, but I'm not able to find any stockists here in the US, or the UK, excuse me. So wondered if you had used them at any point, and if so, what your thoughts are on this particular make. Kind regards, Kevin. Kevin, I have not used them. I have heard some people talk about them very favorably, so they're very happy with them. I would love to review them, but I think they're only available through their own website, and I contacted them once asking if they would be interested in lending me one for review. Unfortunately, they were not able to make those arrangements, and I don't have the budget to buy one. What I can say, though, is the people I've talked to who have used them were very, very happy with them. And so that's about all I know about those. In the future, I'll still, if the opportunity arises, I'll try to get my hands on one. But I probably won't have the budget to do one on my, using my own money to buy one anytime soon. But hopefully that's helpful. That's hearsay, but that's what I've heard about them. Jano asks a question. Hi, Curtis. Could you talk a little bit about lav mics? What is your recommendation for wired and wireless with XLR connection? Okay. We need a lot more information to understand what you're recording, what your circumstances are, and things of that nature. So for wired XLR mics, the wired XLR mics I've used are Countryman B6. I've used the Audio-Technica AT899. Those are the two that I've used that are particularly wired for XLR. However, a lot of the professional level ones you can order with XLR connectors. So you have a variety of options. I don't know what your budget is exactly. But the Audio-Technica AT899 used to be around $200 US. I think the price has gone up somewhere closer to $250 or something like that. So that's one. That's a decent microphone. Actually, it's a quite good microphone. The only thing I don't love about it is that the battery pack is a large cylinder, and it's difficult to, if you have someone that's going to be moving around a little bit, it is a wired microphone. If you have someone that's going to be moving around, I should say this. The version I have is a wired microphone, so it goes into a full-size XLR cable and then into a mixer recorder or camera. And it's just difficult. It's a little bit clumsy in terms of being able to hide that battery pack in someone's pocket. So it's not like a body pack transmitter. It's this big cylinder thing. Other than that, it's a great microphone. It sounds really good, I think. And it seems very high quality. I've had it for a number of years, and it's worked great for me. So that's going to work better if you have someone who's maybe seated at, a lot of times I've heard a lot of people use it, like attorneys will use it for depositions and things of that nature, and it works great for that type of thing. The Countryman B6, Countryman has just introduced an interesting thing. They now have, I think their B6 microphone now has an interchangeable type of adapter, so you can actually output to XLR, you can output to 3.5 millimeter but just by changing which connector you use. So that's a pretty neat system, and the Countryman B6, for my testing, was a very good microphone. It's a little bit on the pricier side, so it's a pro level mic, but that's a good one to look into if you're interested. Now, that would mean you would have lots of options there. You could run it into a wireless system if you wanted to. You could also run it directly into a recorder or a camera if you needed to do that with XLR inputs, of course, or even 3.5 millimeter inputs if you wanted to do that as well. So that one's really nice. It has a lot of options. So they just announced that recently, and I'll put a link for that down below as well. I don't know if you were expecting information about wireless systems. That's an entirely different topic, and it's a little big one. But if that's what you meant, let me know, and we'll come back to that topic as well. I'm actually in the process of reviewing kind of an interesting system. It is the Saramonic UW Mic 9, and the particular kit I have has a dual channel receiver and 2 transmitters. So you can actually have 2 people laved up, and a single receiver will capture the signal from both of those and then output to a stereo signal, mainly made for DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. It does have an XLR adapter for output, but unfortunately it only outputs 1 channel. So if you are going to have 2 people with the lav mics on them, what that means is you have to mix them down to a single channel in the actual wireless system itself, and then send out a mono signal to your recorder. But on a DSLR, actually you can isolate the 2. So you can have 2 wireless lav mics on 2 different talent, and it can actually put one of them out to the left channel, one out to the right channel, so you can actually mix them in post. Or if you prefer, and you're gonna have a really quick turnaround time, you can just mix them together. So that's one. Saramonic is the maker of that. Again, that's a UW Mic 9. It's a UHF wireless system. Of course, I've used Rodelink before, actually, which is my primary wireless system, and that's decent. I don't love the lavalier microphone that comes with that system, but this wireless system itself has been very, very good. I've used the Sennheiser AVX, really like that one. It's pricey. Per channel is about $1,000. Well, I think you can get, with a lower end mic, I think you can get it for less than that. But with the nicer mic, the MKE2 from Sennheiser, which I think sounds really nice, it was closer to $1,000. So the nice thing about the Rodelink and the AVX is that they are both digital systems, and they are incredibly easy to set up and start shooting with, which is really nice when you're on location and you need to work pretty quickly. Those are they're very simple to get going. Something more like a UHF system, which is going to be like the Sennheiser the EW100G3, and all those. There are a variety of different variations of that from Sennheiser. And the Saramonic UHF systems. Those are a little bit more work. You have to do a scan when you get to the location to see which frequencies are available and not having any interference. They don't do any sort of dynamic switching as far as I'm aware. So once you set the frequency that you're going to use, you're on that. And if you suddenly get an RF hit or some sort of interference during the shoot, then you better be monitoring, and you better catch that and then do a retake on that one. But on the other hand, the UHF systems seem to do really, really well, at least the ones I've tested here, like the Saramonic and, of course, the Sennheiser. They do really well maintaining the signal, even if you have barriers between your talent and the receiver. I think the digital systems don't tend to do as well with that, as my experience, like the Rodelink, the AVX. I've also tested an ASDEN system, and all those digital systems have a tendency to drop out once the talent has any sort of barrier in front of them. It's okay if there's a person between you and the receiver, but if you get anything more than that, like a wall, they drop out. So anyway, if you do want to talk more about wireless, we can do that in another session. Next one is from Dwayne Young. Question: I am in Vietnam, and on a cold day here, it's 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and can easily go to 40 degrees Celsius, or the equivalent of 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's bloody hot and humid. Therefore, air conditioning in the studio is a must. Is there any way to run the air condition and remove the noise of the bloody loud machine from the audio? Thinking along the line of taking a few seconds of silence, recording of just the zircon running. I'm not sure. I think there was a little typo in there. Running, and then in post remove that noise. I've just purchased a post-processing class and I'll start going through that tonight. Yes. So in the post-processing class, there is a segment there on noise removal. And yes, of course you can do that. One other thing there are a couple things you can try that I might suggest during production to make things easier for you. One I know may not sound very popular, but it's worth considering. What I sometimes do, and I actually did this on a short film earlier last year. We were shooting it at someone's house. It was the middle of summer. It was a hot day. We cranked the air conditioner while we were getting set up. As soon as we were ready to actually call action and start shooting, we turned the AC off. We did an interview that lasted about 20 minutes. As soon as it was done, we turned it back on. The nice thing about that was that we didn't have to contend with the air conditioning noise, and we got amazing audio. It was great. So that's one thing to consider. If you're going to be doing a 6-hour-long interview or something like that, which I don't, good luck, but that may not be feasible, but you could take breaks and turn the air conditioning back on, whatever. But just consider that as a possibility. Number 2 is use the polar pattern of your microphone to help you. So what you want to do is when you're choosing how to set up the talent, when you're working with the director of photography, or if you are the director of photography, or if you're doing everything, what you want to do is get your microphone out. Presumably you're using some sort of, I would recommend that you use some sort of supercardioid or at least a cardioid boom microphone if you're indoors doing a seated interview, and use the polar pattern of your microphone to your advantage. So if there is a certain spot where most of the air conditioning noise is originating, usually a register where the air is coming out, you want to put you want that to be placed where the microphone does the best rejection. So on a supercardioid microphone or on a cardioid microphone, that's going to be the back of the microphone. So if that's possible, you'll want to orient the whole setup so that the back of your microphone is facing or in the general direction of the air register where the air is coming out. Or if you are using a supercardioid, that might be off to the rear, but off to the side a little bit. You need to get to know your polar pattern on the microphone that you're using, so that can help. Another thing is, boom the microphone from above facing down, just like we talked about in the production sound course. Don't have it on top of the camera facing back, because you're going to pick up more noise in most cases that way. So those are some things to consider. Hopefully those are helpful for you, Dwayne. Best wishes there. All right, now we have an epic question. This came from Ashley Willis. Hi, Mr. Judd. Thank you for replying to my responses on YouTube. You've been helpful, so on and so forth. I'm going to skip the rest of that paragraph. I'm in the works of creating a project working on with various musicians. The concept is to have the musicians play live, but I want to capture a music video feel, meaning shot where the mics cannot be seen. Therefore, it was advised I record the artists playing live first, then play it back to them via speakers, and have them play along while I get the various looks I want. I know I could have them do it in a studio, but I really want that live and authentic sound. Typically music videos are shot that way, where there is some sort of audio recording done ahead of time, and then you play that back while they're pretending to play along, or whatever, pretending to actually play, so that you can get the exact look that you want. That's very typical for music videos, and you could do that by recording there if you want. I think the term you used, I really want that live and authentic sound. That's fine. So do the audio recording first, where you can get the mics in the exact spot where you want to put them to get the sound you want. Then do your mix, which means you may need to schedule a different day to come back and do the shoot. That's up to you. But then you can come back and do the shoot and play that back for them while they actually do the work on the camera work, where they're actually on camera and doing their thing. All right, then you list out a bunch of camera equipment, A7S for the camera, lenses, Manfrotto, a Rode Video Micro, I assume, is what you're talking about here. You're thinking about getting an H4n or an H5, and you have a Blue Yeti USB microphone. Okay, so here's where things get a little more complicated. Now you list out the 4 scenarios here, the different artists that you'll be working with, it looks like. Number 1, okay, here we go. One performer is a solo artist who also plays an acoustic guitar. So solo artist, acoustic guitar. I assume this person is singing as well. So you're going to need a channel for the guitar and a channel for the singing. 2 channel inputs. Okay, so H5 would be okay for that. I would avoid the H4n at this point. Its preamplifiers are not that strong. You'll have a much better experience with the H5. So I would definitely save up and spend the extra money on the H5. Then the second scenario is a duet. One person plays an acoustic guitar, sings, and the other person sings only. That's 3 channels. So an H5 is not going to be enough. Well, actually, I guess it could be potentially, but you have to get a different, I think it has the plug. You can take the different modules, the Zoom modules, or you have to get another input. So you're going to need 3 inputs for that one, potentially, unless you're going to just use the stereo mics on top of the H5 to do the recording. That's tricky unless you really are okay picking up a lot of room ambiance or the outdoor ambiance. It's not going to be as focused of a sound, so there's some risks there. If you do want a more focused sound and you're going to close mic each of the, either instruments and the singing, then you're going to want 3 inputs. So you may need to look at a different recorder. You might look instead at the Tascam DR70D. Worth a look. Next one is a cappella artist who mainly shoots outside, sometimes accompanied by a drummer who simply beats on a wall with his hands to create the beat. So there you just need 2 channels, that's fine. Or again, the stereo mics built into the H5. And then lastly, the other has a few more instruments, a singer, a guitarist, sometimes 2 guitars, keyboardist, and a drummer who drums on a percussion instrument I don't know the name of or how to pronounce. So you're getting into something pretty advanced here, and I don't know how you want to do it. Again, you could just use the H5 and get the stereo mics close to the performers, have them lay down the recording first, and then come back and have them do the performance on camera. There's a big trade-off there. So again, if you're just using the stereo mics on top of those recorders, it's going to pick up probably a fair bit more ambiance. And if you want that sound, that's great. I might recommend that you do some experimenting. If you can get your hands on a recorder that has stereo microphones, even if it's just a Zoom H1, which is their least expensive mic, recorder with the stereo microphone inputs or stereo microphones, get to know what that sounds like, because I'm not sure that's the sound you want. You need to decide that. You don't have a mixer interface. Do you think I need this for where the H5 suffices? I think you need to answer that question first. You need to borrow a stereo recorder and see if that's good enough, or if you want to individually mic each instrument and or voice. So you're going to get a much more, it'll sound more studio-like if you can close mic each of them with a separate microphone. It can still sound very live, but you're going to be able to control all the other sound around them. And I don't know if you have, for the audio, I don't know if you have a place where they can perform that for the recording. That sounds really good. That's not always as easy as it sounds, so that's something to consider. If I use the mini Rode mic with the 3.5mm cord, I was going to use a converter to XLR cable. I know XLR is preferred and delivers a crisper sound. Does that mean the quality will be better as well when using a converter? Now, be very careful there. Not all microphones can do that, and I don't think, if you are talking about the Rode Video Micro, which I think you are, that adapter will not work. That records into inputs that provide plug-in power. And an XLR input does not provide plug-in power, so that's not going to work. So we'll need a little more info there. Clarification, first of all, is that the Rode Video Micro that you're talking about, or is that a different microphone? And no, unfortunately, an XLR adapter will not work if it is the Rode Video Micro, or if it's the Rode Video Mic Go. Any of the mics that are not self-powered, which is some of those from Rode. Lastly, what is the difference between a mic for? By the way. XLR is preferred because you can run longer cables, because you have an unbalanced connection. That's a different thing. I don't know if it's necessarily going to sound crisper, so I would stay away from that. Most professionals are using XLR-based microphones, or microphones with XLR outputs, because they can run longer cables that way. And frankly, a lot of the higher quality microphones use XLR outputs, so they are balanced microphones. So I wouldn't necessarily just assume that just because it has a different type of cable that has a crisper or better sound. So let's talk a little bit more about exactly which mic you have, and we'll talk more about that. Okay. What's the difference between a mic for video and film, like a Rode, and a mic for music? I assume convenience is a factor, shape of a Rode mic, and the boom option allows movement for film. But is there any mechanical difference? Like, can the mics for music handle more noise or something? or are they really interchangeable? I guess I'm just trying to figure out if a Sennheiser could be used for film and, say, a Rode NTG could be used to record music. Yes. No, well, it depends on the microphone. So you could certainly use a Rode NTG shotgun microphone to record music. And in fact, I've actually done that. Is that the ideal microphone for music? Well, it depends. Probably not it depends. It really depends. So it's not such a simple answer. I would say this: if you're recording in an environment where there's a lot of sound reflecting off the walls and coming back and so that's going to sound like reverb or echo, some people call it. Technically, it's reverb. A shotgun microphone is probably not your best choice because you could run into phasing issues. What happens is if that off-axis sound comes into the interference tube, which is, again, shotgun mic, long tube, slits in the side. If it comes into that interference tube, you can start to get some funny phase issues, which don't sound good. So from that standpoint, typically a shotgun microphone is not something you would use, at least in a room that has a lot of reverb. So that I would avoid. But there's nothing that says you cannot use a shotgun mic. And in fact, I have recorded my wife playing violin on the Rode NTG2 before, and it was in a room where that worked, and that was an okay choice. A lot of the mics that are made, and again, they're not necessarily... A lot of, say, for example, a small diaphragm condenser cardioid microphone, which is usually considered an instrument microphone, usually those are made for shooting indoors, and usually they're made for putting on a stand. They don't necessarily have a lot of, they haven't necessarily done a lot of engineering work to build in isolation mechanisms so that, so if you do start to move the microphone, that's not usually kind of central to the design of those types of microphones. And also, they're not necessarily made to be especially immune to wind. If the wind, comes blowing across the microphone grill, they're not necessarily designed to kind of prevent that from making that low frequency rumbling sound. So, but you can put a microphone like that inside of a nice wind protector, like, for example, a Zeppelin cover, and it can do fine outdoors. So I've done that as well. So I guess in short, to answer to your question, it depends. You can use any microphone for anything it's well suited for, and that can be lots of different things. I did actually shoot some outdoor dialogue with my Audio-Technica 4053B a few weeks ago, and I put it inside of a Zeppelin type cover, Rycote Cyclone, and that worked very well. It did great outdoors. So. And that's not necessarily designed for outdoor use. So anyway, those are all great questions. Don't apologize, Ashley. They're great questions. You got to start somewhere, and learning is a process of asking questions and experimenting and learning from those. So trial and error is definitely one of the best teachers. I agree with you, but being prepared is also good as well. So hopefully this was helpful for you. Thanks for all the questions that were submitted this week. I hope your projects are coming along well. You're learning lots as you try new things. It's always really heartening to me to see that type of stuff, and I encourage you all to stick with it, and I hope you're still excited about making great audio recordings. We will talk to you again next week.